All right. Awesome. All right. So I want to welcome you guys to the BAM training for this month. Hopefully everyone's having an awesome 2018. This is Brandon Allen. I am one of the co-creators and co-curators, say that 5 times fast, of the Business Accelerator membership, of which this training is being delivered through. So if you're watching this or listening to this, it's because you're a client of our coaching or you're a member of BAM. So I want to welcome you guys to the training. And what is so appropriate for today is goal setting. You know, we're in the early parts of the year, and this is where people decide that they want to be a new person. We want to look different. We want to act different. We want different results in our lives. This is the time for transformation to take place. Now, unfortunately, we're about a month into the year, and it's most likely that some of your well-intentioned New Year's resolutions and goals may be already falling by the wayside. And by the end of this quarter, most people, most of you will have completely deviated from your intentions, and you'll be right back into the old patterns of behavior that you had in 2017. Now, I don't want to risk being too much doom and gloom and depressing, so I'm going to tell you, we're going to talk about how you fight against those old patterns of behavior to create new patterns of behavior. And we do that through the use of goals, not only to inspire us, but to inspire our teams and to create lift in our business. But the reality is that goals come with some challenges. They come with challenges. It's not easy always to set goals and embrace goals. But the reality is that when companies set goals and when team members set goals, studies show that people are more productive. Now, here's the cool thing, and I'm not endorsing this by any means, but if you set goals, even if you never look at them again, you're more likely to hit your goals just by even writing them down once than you are if you never did. This is a powerful phenomenon. This is something that we got, that I have tested for years and years in the corporate world and in my coaching and consulting work. When clients do goal setting and they do goal setting well, great things happen in their business. But I talk to a lot of business owners who, when I take them through an exercise that we utilize called the Core Blueprint, they tell me, Brandon, I have never, ever set an intentional direction for where I want to take my business. And if that's you, what comes up from that is a situation where employees don't know or understand what's expected of them, where they're going, what they want to accomplish. And if you don't have that, what you lack is workplace engagement. But there's some reasons why people don't set goals. One of those reasons is, and I was talking to actually a business owner about this today. They said, Brandon, I would set goals, but man, you know what? It seems so arbitrary. If I want to grow my business 25%, well, where does that number even come from? How do we even know if we're going to do that? But that's the first challenge. And so we avoid doing that. And I'm going to talk about how we set goals with intention and how we can feel good about the specific goals that we set. And we're going to get into that. But that's one of the challenges that business owners have is you may feel like, gosh, you know what? It just seems so arbitrary, the goals that I'm setting. How do I know what I should do? And look, here's the thing with business owners is we have a lot of choice, don't we? We have tons of choice, tons of things that we can do. And because of that, sometimes it's hard to pick goals. Like, how do we know which goals are the right goals? How do I know which goals I should pick? And so we're going to talk about that as well. But the other challenge is communication. How do we get into a space where we can talk about goals consistently and make these a living and breathing thing in our organization day in and day out? Because if we do that, we're likely to create really powerful results for our business, and you're likely to create really powerful results for your team members. So we're going to get into that. So the first thing that I want to talk about with goal setting, and this is so important because most people overlook this particular area. Who do you want to be? If you talk about goal setting, the question becomes, who do you need to be to achieve the goals that you have? If you are $1 million business a year in revenue and you want to be a $1.5 million a year revenue business, the reality is that is going to require that $500,000 gap between $1 million and $1.5 million is going to require a new set of behaviors that allow you to achieve that. And if you want to adopt a new set of behaviors, that's going to require you to be someone different this year than you were last year. And here's the tricky thing about this. When we get into this and talk about this, the reality is some of these things that we may have to get rid of or leave behind are good things. They're not bad things. They're good things, but we want to leave those behind so that we can do better things. But what happens to business owners is that you get into a pattern where you adopt the definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And most of the time when I see business owners setting goals, what they're doing is they're setting bigger goals, but what they're hoping will get them there is hard work, trying harder, being more efficient, and trying to cram more into what they do. They're not being strategic about how they're going to hit goals. So one of the most powerful tools that you can use to really direct your goal setting approach is something that we talk about all the time. It's mission, vision, and values. Why does your company exist? That's the mission. Where is your company going? That's the vision. What does your company value? What are the behaviors that your company adopts that it will not sacrifice or scrimp on that are so important to the organization that there's no way that a business owner would even dream of violating those or allowing that violation to continue for any extended period of time? Everything that we do in business starts with the mission, vision, and values. And if we want to create workplace engagement with our employees and our team and for ourselves, we have to connect the work that we do with the high level vision of where the company is going. And when we do that, people feel inspired and they recognize that I am contributing something to the organization that is meaningful and important. Take a look at your mission, vision, and values. Are they inspiring? Are they helpful? Do they inspire you to action? Do they give you some direction on what your next steps are as a business owner? And when we do mission and vision right, we know what kind of value we're trying to create, what problems we're trying to solve, who we're trying to solve those problems for, and where we want to take our company in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. There are a lot of business owners that I work with that don't think about what the mission, vision, and values are. Some business owners that I work with have never even written these down or even considered their mission, vision, and values. So what would that look like for you to really plug into that piece? If you haven't written down your mission, vision, and values, go through that exercise and do it. Craft a meaningful blueprint for who your business is and what your business can accomplish. And when I think about core values, I'll just share some of my core values and show you how we utilize these to really create lift. One of our values is superhuman productivity. And what that means is that we get things done efficiently, effectively, and at a level that people wonder how we did it, all while being home for dinner. We expect people to prioritize and execute. So when I think about my value of superhuman productivity, it means that I've got to be super clear about the activities that I do and how much of those activities that I do so that I ensure that I don't put myself in a position where I am working well into the night, missing family dinners and things like that. One of my personal values is family. So I want to make sure that the work that we do aligns with my personal values. And this is going to dictate how I work and what kinds of things that I work on. We lead is another one of our values. Leadership is a choice, not a rank. Everyone in the organization leads themselves first and also demonstrates leadership qualities in their day-to-day interactions with others. We promote empowering team members to do their best work. We want to empower people, and the goal setting process, as we're going to talk about this in one of the points today, is about empowering people. We're Hoosiers. We live and die as a team. No one is bigger than the team. We work, win, and fail together. And one of our other values that people are always surprised by is we have a value of being uncomfortable. And what that means is growth requires pushing through discomfort and being willing to stand out and stand alone. Embrace sucking to continue to evolve into your best self. This is an ongoing journey that no one arrives at. We want to embrace growth. We want to embrace change. We want to make ourselves uncomfortable. That's part of our values, and we build that in to our goal setting process. We want to make sure that we're doing things that stretch us. We're doing things that require us to learn and develop new skills, new attributes, new attitudes. That's the stuff that we're doing with our goal setting. So mission, vision, and values is at the base of all the goal setting process. One of the most powerful tools that we use is what we call 3D questioning. What do you need to start doing, stop doing, and keep doing this year to be successful? And here's the thing with goals. The answer to your problems is not more. The answer to your problems is most likely being more strategic with the resources and the time and the money that you have at your disposal. But when we get into a scarcity mindset, it's really easy for us to say more, 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 more. But likely you have goals that are growth oriented, more revenue, more profit, more customers, more sales, more patience. Whatever it is that you do, you probably have some goals that require more. And more is good. But the reality is that sometimes when we adopt new behaviors, we have to get rid of old behaviors. We can't incorporate all these new behaviors all the time, or new things that we're doing, or new approaches. There needs to be a balance of, hey, if I start doing this, this probably means I've got to stop doing other things. And I'll give you an example of what this looks like. For me personally, I'm looking at how do I become more of do more speaking engagements and trainings and things like that I really enjoy doing. That's a high value to my business. As I've gotten more and more speaking opportunities and I start doing that, what I've recognized is other things that I used to do are done less than they used to be. One of those things is one-on-one coaching. As I do more training, more speaking, and different activities that way, I've done less one-on-one coaching, because for me, that is something that if I'm going to speak more, I can't have a completely full schedule of coaching clients on my calendar to be effective doing that. One of the results of that is hiring other coaches to coach in my organization, the clients that we work with. That is an example of starting something new, but stopping something that is not a bad thing. It's something that I enjoy, but I've got to eliminate the level of coaching that I was doing so that I could do these other things. Most of the time, where I see business owners go wrong is they don't go through the start, stop, and keep doing process for each of their goals. If you have a revenue goal of $2 million a year, and that's a $300,000 increase, the question becomes, what do we need to start doing to achieve that? What do we need to stop doing? What do we need to keep doing? And I like to go through this exercise with each of my individual goals and say, okay, what are we going to start doing, but what are we going to stop doing so that we can make this happen? 3D questioning is so powerful when we do it right. Ultimately, what we want to do is be strategic, right? We want to do be more efficient with the time that we have and align ourselves with our purpose a little bit more intentionally. So we're only doing the things that were absolutely high value activities for our business and that we're absolutely great at. And I know that for some of you listening to this, you may be at various levels of your business, and I get it. When we first start a business or we're in the early stages of a business, we don't always have the luxury of hiring tons of people to take things off our plate. We become the chief cook and bottle washer for the organization, and I get it. You may be in that space now, but start to identify those things that you want to be able to delegate once you have the resources to allow you to do that. So that's the first thing. Who you are is important. Your value to the organization first is who you are, not in what you do. And when you get crystal clear on who you are and who you need to be differently to achieve the goals that you have set for yourself, this is the first step to really creating powerful results. So let's talk about setting goals. The first thing is, look, any goal that I set, anything that I intend to do, I don't overcommit myself. I'm very realistic about what I can and what I can't do. And I've got to look at my schedule. I've got to look at the priorities, and I've got to make some crucial decisions about what I can and what I can't do, because there's nothing worse in a setting goal process than setting a bunch of goals with your team and getting them all excited about it in a retreat, and then looking at them later and never talking about it again. And your team just sits around thinking, man, what happened to the goals? What happened to all those things that we talked about at the retreat? We're really not doing anything with those. And if you want to ruin your credibility as a leader, that's a great way to do it. And I think about marathon training that I did. In 2016, I ran a marathon, and that required a high level of intention. But it also required, as I talked about in the very first point about who I want to become, it required me to adopt some different habits. Number one, it required me to work out at a certain hour of the day, and I had to be strategic about that. If I have to get my kids up at 6:30 for school, I've got to get my workout in before that time to make it work. And if you have a goal like that, a big stretch goal, which a marathon in 2016 was a stretch goal, there were a lot of different things that I created around that to help me achieve that goal. And one of them was being very intentional about the process for how I was going to do that. I mapped out, what does every week of that marathon training look like, and when and where am I going to do that? So I set the goals, I set the milestones and the tasks to keep me on track for that particular goal. And that's what we want to do for every goal. So the goals that we set, this is so important. And you've heard the terminology of SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time sensitive. These things are so important. When we talk about setting objectives, a couple of things that we want to talk about is we want to, as Jim Collins talks about, we want to confront the brutal facts of the situation. So if you have goals, and I hear people tell me, hey, Brandon, I want to double the size of my business this year. And I say, hey, that's great, but I got a question for you. What are the facts that you have that let you know that doubling the size of your business is actually possible? Now, that sounds like a not inspiring question, right? You could even accuse me of being a dream killer for even asking a question like that. But the reality is I want to know, have you thought this through? Because there's nothing worse than setting a goal that you get about 3 or 4 months into and you realize, man, there is no way we are hitting this goal. And the sad part is sometimes your team knows there's no way we're hitting this goal before you even roll it out. But if we haven't done our homework as leaders, again, we risk looking bad by not doing our homework. If you do your homework, that provides a level of respect that people now can look at that and say, you know what, you've thought about it, you've reasoned it out, it sounds doable, we'll get behind it. So when I set goals, I think about, what are the facts that support that this is possible? What are the issues that could get in my way? And then when we build the strategy out, we're keeping those two things in mind so that we set a strategy that allows us to think about the issues that we can see and that we do know about, while also utilizing the facts that we have at our disposal to let us know that, hey, this is a reasonable goal. This is a possible goal. We can do that. So think about what your goals look like. Are they measurable? You should be able to look at your goal and say, did I win? Yes or no? That's the question that you should be able to answer when you set a goal. How do I know if I've won? Did I win? Yes or no? And look, sometimes they're process-oriented goals where it's like, did I implement this? Yes or no? Sometimes your measure of success is, did I do it or did I not do it? It doesn't always have to be a number. But everything that you do, look at how you measure that success. If you set abstract goals, most likely you are not going to achieve those goals because there's no defined endpoint that comes along with that. That's the number one mistake in the actual goal setting process that I see leaders do. They know about SMART goals, yet they still set goals that say, hey, we want to streamline our processes. Okay, what does that mean? I don't even know what that means. What is streamlining? What processes? What does streamlining them look like? How will you know if they're streamlined versus what you're doing now? How do you measure that success? Look, this sounds perplexing sometimes when we start to ask these questions and we get into it, but the power in doing this is to get crystal clear on what it is that we're trying to accomplish and to know how we measure the success of this particular objective. Asking these questions takes something like streamlining processes and then forces us to understand and know, what does streamlining a process really even look like? What does it entail? What are all the factors that go into an efficient process? This allows you to be a student of that game and to have an intelligent conversation with yourself and with your team about what that looks like and how we're going to achieve that. When your team can see it, they can do it. But if they can't see it, they're just like, man, I hope I'm doing okay. They're not really sure. So when you set goals, make sure they're SMART. Make sure that people can say, how do we win? Make sure that endpoint is defined and it's crystal clear. And then we'll go to this next point here is empowerment. I want to empower the team. So when I set goals and I talk about it, look, I can bring these goals from down on high and I can hand them to my team and say, look, these are the goals. Do the goals. But the reality is what I want to do is I want to get my team involved in these goals. What do they think? What do they think? What are they doing? You know, what do they think is possible? I want to get their input in this process, because when I get their input in the process, now I've got buy-in. Now I've got a team that can get behind me and support what it is that we're doing and we're trying to achieve. But without doing that, we don't know if we can do that. Now, here's the second part to this. Give your team some ownership in the goals that you set. Hopefully on your team, you have some other people that can take some accountability for certain goals, but maybe you don't. But if you do, how do you give them ownership of certain objectives and goals? And how do you give them the freedom to do that? There's nothing worse than setting some goals for your team and then micromanaging their process to the nth degree. If you want to burn your team out, if you want to frustrate them, if you want to you're not trying to do this, but if you want to send the message of, hey, I don't trust you or I don't believe in you, then micromanage that process for your team and watch what happens as you completely kill their momentum, their excitement, and their buy-in to helping you achieve powerful goals. Give your team the space to do this. So when you delegate these goals, give them the room to figure out the strategy and how they want to roll these goals out and make them happen. Get your team involved in that process. When you do that, powerful things happen. Not only does your team have buy-in and complete buy-in and engagement, but they're likely to grow as a result of that process as well. The last main point that I want to talk about is creating space. Create the space to make goals a reality. I talked about being already. And one of the things that Bill Hybels said, who wrote the book Simplify, Bill Hybels is a pastor at Willow Creek Church in Chicago, Illinois. Bill Hybels said that I schedule things not for what I want to get done, but for who I want to become. Look at your goals. If you want to become a goal achiever, does your schedule reflect goal achievement? Does it reflect goal achievement? I want to talk with my team about goals on a weekly basis in a meeting. And I want to go over the people that are in charge of the different goals and see what their progress is and how they're doing. I do quarterly retreats to talk about our quarterly goals, because the important thing with setting the goals is we set annual goals, we break them down into quarterly goals. You might even break them down to monthly goals. Heck, you might even break these down into weekly goals, which is something that I did with a sales rep that I coach with in the sales space. I worked in sales for a long time, and sales is a goal-oriented reverse engineering process where you look at what does it take to achieve my sales results? How many calls do I need to make? How many appointments do I need to do to close so many deals? And we reverse engineered that and figured that out to a science. And you can do that too. But create the space for your goals to happen. Create the space for that to happen. If you don't create the space, people aren't talking about it. There's no sense of urgency. People aren't engaging in it. And you're likely going to fall short of your goals in certain areas, because here's the thing. The whole point of goals, and I mentioned this at the very beginning, right? How do we overcome abstract sounding goals, right? If I say I want to increase my revenue 25%, it's like, well, where did that number come from? Well, crap, I pulled it out of my butt. I have no idea. But let's say 25% is the goal because you feel like, hey, with the marketing assets that we have, with the team that we have, and the space that we have, we can achieve these goals. We feel pretty good about it. Well, now once I set that goal, and let's say I'm doing $1 million and I want to do 1.25 million, then I can look at that and say, what does 1.25 million behavior look like? What do I want to do differently every single day? How do I want to show up differently that allows that to happen? And this is the powerful thing about setting a goal, particularly a goal that stretches us a little bit, is it requires me to come and show up differently every single day. And I've got to create the space to show up differently. I've got to create that space to make it happen. Creating space in our lives is so powerful, but it's one of the most overlooked things that we'll do. Brandon, I don't have time. Who has time to talk about their goals? Who has time to step back and set goals to begin with? Who has time to create this level of intention in my business? I don't have time. I'm too busy. Too busy seeing patients. I'm too busy working with clients. I'm too busy packaging my product. I'm too busy doing all these other things. I'm too busy writing copy. I'm too busy building my website. I'm too busy. But creating the space, if we say the goals are important, creating the space for that sets the intention for your team that, hey, this is important and we're going to make time for it. Because everything that is a high level priority for me, and goals are one of those priorities, looking at the goals, talking about the goals, reviewing the goals, that's a high priority. And if it's a high priority, then this is something I'm going to make time and space for so that we can talk about what we want to achieve as an organization, and we can talk about how we're doing. Because here's the thing about creating space, that it creates accountability. If you know you have to talk to me every single week about your goals, you're going to come to me with goals. This is the powerful thing about coaching, that what we do. I get people that say all the time, you know what, Brandon, I love our monthly call, because here's the deal. I know I've got to get the stuff done that I told you I was going to get done. We've got built-in accountability through that relationship. So create the space, get your own accountability, but you are going to hold your team accountable as well. Holding your team accountable. So when you ask them how they're doing with their goals and you're creating space, they might tell you something like, hey, they're going great. And that sounds good, doesn't it? Hey, they're going great. I mean, that sounds like, hey, it's going really terrible. I mean, it sounds better than that, right? But here's the problem about that. They're going great. I don't know what that means. What does that even mean? And I've noticed that my version of great can sometimes be different than my team's version of great. We don't always share the same definition of greatness. One person's great is finished. Another person's great is, I haven't started yet, but I've thought about it. And we have this happen in projects. So when you create the space, ask specific question. Hey, it's going great. Great. Tell me what that means. Where are you at? Tell me what you did last week. What was the best thing you did last week in regards to achieving the goal? And I'm starting to create that accountability now because I'm asking questions that really force them to demonstrate that, hey, I'm working on this and I'm doing it. Because there's nothing worse than having someone work on a project or a goal and you get to the end game and they're like, oh man, it's not even close. I'm sorry, started way late. But then you remember that for months and months, they were telling you it was going great. And then you realize the fallacy in your approach in that moment. But here's the thing. If your team's falling short or they're struggling with a goal, if we're creating space, we're also creating space to coach. So be prepared to coach people. Don't shame them. Don't guilt them. Don't get pissed when they haven't achieved the goal, but use that as an opportunity to dig in and figure out what's getting in their way. What are the issues that you're encountering that's preventing you from achieving this goal? I've got to have that kind of a conversation with people. Be prepared to coach. But again, this goes back to creating space for accountability. If you don't have the time, if you're not creating the space, you're likely not going to engage in that particular activity at a high level. But think about if we did create the space, if we set the goals that were specific, if they got us closer to the mission and vision and values of our organization, if we took an approach that less is more and we got clear on what our value is as a human, as a productive member of the society, what would that look like for us? And I talked about insulating yourself inside of your purpose. So if you missed that training, go back and check that out, because that's all about how do we work within our purpose, right? Each one of us has a sole purpose. Each one of us has a set of skills and natural proclivities and talents and abilities that when we utilize those in the marketplace to the best of our ability, we have the ability to create special value for our communities, for our world that we create in. And goal setting can be a great way to help us express that at the highest level. And I'm telling you right now that the answer isn't to do more or work more hours or work harder as much as it is about looking at your purpose and looking at how do you ruthlessly commit to your purpose through your goals this year so you can create a high level of value for people, and that you're very intentional and laser focused in the things that you're doing. And I promise you, if you do that, this could be your best year yet. So think about what your year looks like for 2018. Is this your best year yet? And when I close a workshop, I always ask I kind of show a fork in the road, and there's two signs in the fork in the road. And one of the fork in the road says we can do the same old shit that we've been doing, right? And you can do that. Or you can do some crazy new shit as a result of changing your behaviors, setting more intentional goals, empowering your team to work in those goals, and to create the space for people to talk about that and have that happen. If you don't have weekly goals, if you don't have quarterly meetings, if you don't have space created to create accountability and to do coaching for your team to help them achieve your goals, they're likely going to be frustrated and they're going to fall short in that goal setting process. For those of you who haven't seen it and you work with us, make sure you get a copy of the Alignment and Execution Blueprint. That has the core blueprint, it's got the quarterly blueprint, and it's got all the different tools that we use for project management, KPIs and measuring our numbers, and having all that stuff in there. I can't stress enough having a tool that you write down your goals so they're on paper, and even using a dashboard to maybe compile certain metrics that are important to you. There's a lot of great dashboard tools that are out there. In fact, I'm working on bringing in a company to our network that does put those dashboards together for small businesses. So I'm pretty excited to maybe unroll that and unleash that upon our clientele. Of course, I always use myself as a guinea pig first, so I'll probably buy it and utilize it for a period of time before I roll it out to anyone else. But think about how you can be more intentional with your numbers, measurements, creating space, all those good things for this year. Think about your purpose. Are you working in your purpose at the highest level? What's keeping you from doing that? And what would it look like this year to just work in your purpose a little bit more, be a little bit more intentional about your goals, and overall accomplish the mission that you've set out to accomplish through your business? And when you do that, you're not only changing your life and the life of your team, you're changing the lives of your communities that you impact as well. Do the goal setting process, go through the alignment execution blueprint. We're available for questions and comments and all that good stuff that may come up as you go through that process. We do this a lot in the conversations that we have. So I want to thank everyone for being on the call today, listening to the call. If you have questions, hit us up in the membership, email us, and we're happy to answer those questions. I want to thank everyone for being with us tonight. And that is it for goal setting. Hopefully you guys got some inspiration, some ideas on what you guys want to do differently. Take those ideas and implement those going forward. Thanks, guys.